Welcome to another edition of Golic and Smetty. I am Mike Golic Sr. She is Jess Smetana. Jess, we definitely have some serious stuff to talk about down where you are with, the possibility of the hurricane approaching, how it's going to affect sports. But, I mean, it obviously goes beyond sports. But right now, before we get into the sports part of it, what is, and obviously this is being taped earlier in the week, where are we with everything with the hurricane in the path?
Well, luckily, I'm based out in Miami, and we're going to miss the worst of the hurricane, but we've already had tons of flooding here. It's rained nonstop for like a day, Mike. It's crazy. I had to move all my plants indoors. So, yeah, it's kind of scary. I'm not a native South Floridian, so this is like, I'm always like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? And then all my coworkers make fun of me, and they're like, well, unless it's a category 4 or higher, we don't do anything. And that just seems irresponsible. But yeah, I went out to the store and bought some waters because I'm a little squeamish. But yeah, it sounds like Tampa is going to get hit pretty hard. So we're definitely thinking about all the people that are going to be impacted by it, and hopefully it doesn't do as much damage as it might be predicted to do. So hoping those people are all right.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a lot from the sports side of it, but certainly the life side of it is way more important. You mentioned something interesting there, a few things before we get into that. You moved your plant inside. So, okay, I get it. Now, I know you're not from there, so is this a plant that you got down there that is still supposed to be outside, or all of a sudden you're doing this taking care of plant thing or moving around? What are you doing?
Yeah, Mike, like, we're supposed to get heavy wind gusts, and I don't want my plant to get hurt. And then there's also like the very small possibility that like a wind will pick up this plant and like slam it into my window, right? So it's kind of like you got to be extra careful for property, but also like I don't want my plant to get hurt. I care about this plant deeply. I brought it back to life several times after going out of town and abandoning it, and so yeah, I'm hoping that it does better inside than outside during the storm. So
we were chatting a little before we started this, and you travel with your plants. Is that correct?
Well, not all of them, but like, yeah, when I moved to Miami, my boyfriend and I did bring plants with us because we didn't want to leave them behind. And sometimes when, we're going on a trip out of town somewhere or driving somewhere, we'll bring maybe 1 or 2 with us just to keep it safe. Do you not do that? I don't understand all this because we're in South Bend right now. We bought between South Bend and Arizona, and we have the Sprinter van to drive because we have the 3 dogs, which is a lot of fun. Great van, by the way. I've been in the van now.
Yeah, it's
Love
very
the van.
good. Yeah,
very nice van.
It's a great way to travel. I dig it, but. So when we're going from Arizona to South Bend or South Bend to Arizona, we obviously have the dogs in there. We have some of the things we're going to take. And I'll be damned if my wife we don't have like 5 or 6 plants that we're transporting back and forth. I'm like, we can get plants out in Arizona. We got plants here. Why do we have to go between the 2 places and take them? I don't understand that. I got a fucking van full of plants.
Well, you're not going to just like leave them and let them die, right?
Well, I mean, there are plants outside in your landscaping.
But Mike, would you leave your pets behind?
A plant is not a pet. And there are plants in the landscaping that die and then you replant the next year. I mean, isn't it circle of life? I don't know. I mean, I mean, the stuff we're transporting, I don't understand it. And so I would imagine your boyfriend hates doing that, right? Tell me he doesn't.
No, this is all his fault. Like, he's the one who started all of this.
He doesn't really.
Yes, he has a green thumb. He loves plants. Mike, I shit you not. My boyfriend visited my family in Chicago last fall. He was in town for the Notre Dame Wisconsin game. We went to a forest preserve. He took acorns home with him to plant to see if he could grow an oak tree out of his apartment. Like, he's very invested in growing plants. He's currently growing an avocado tree from an avocado he ate and decided he wanted to see if he could get it to sprout. Like, we've got plant experiments. He dries seeds from like peppers sometimes to plant. Like, we have science experiments happening at all times in the kitchen with him and all his little plants and sprouts. Yeah.
So he transports the plants then? It's kind of his thing? I mean,
yes,
when you're driving them up. Oh my God.
Yes. We stayed with his parents for a little bit during the pandemic at the beginning, and before even like packing up the, toilet paper and the Clorox wipes and everything, he got the plants ready. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Do we think I'm the minority in this?
Yes, I think. Well,
really?
I thought you were going to say, "Do you think I'm the asshole?" And I was going to say, "Yes, I do. I think that you need to care for your plants better, Mike. I really do. I think you need to invest some more time into gardening." Mm-hmm.
I don't have to because my wife does it, and whenever we make that run to Home Depot or whatever to get plants, it's the worst time of the year for me. I hate it. I am so, I'll go and I'll be the mule and I'll carry everything and I'll help dig and I'll help plant, but I'm not going to lie, I don't enjoy it. And I certainly don't enjoy, transporting 20 plants, in my van back and forth from Arizona to South Bend. But, I'm not going to say no to my wife because we know happy wife, happy life. So, I'm just going to do it. But I thought I was the majority in this, but it sounds like I'm not.
No, and you know what? My dad loves gardening. He
really,
when I was growing up, he would always make me help him plant things in our yard. I really think that you need to tap into gardening and plant health, because I think you'll find a hobby that is both enriching and rewarding, Mike, especially when you can grow your own food. Growing a little zucchini, a little tomato. It's just, what's better? Mwah. I love gardening.
Well, I'm going to say this, Jess. I'm about to turn 60, so that shit ain't happening.
Okay.
I will not
Fair
be picking
enough.
up. I will not be picking up gardening at
Can't
60.
teach an old dog new tricks, I guess.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. So there's one other thing before we jump into the sports world a bit. I saw a picture of you on Instagram paddleboarding.
Yeah.
Now, paddleboarding, one thing. Paddleboarding, I haven't done it a lot. My wife does it. She enjoys it. But the thing that now I'll fall off occasionally and all that kind of shit. But when I saw the picture of you, it's like you had a ton of stuff on the paddleboard, like you were transporting it.
Yeah.
How can you do that knowing, do you never fall off? Does it never get windy? Wouldn't you lose the shit that's on your paddleboard? It was like you were like moving stuff. Like you put all your personal belongings on a paddleboard and was going across the sea.
Yeah, so here's an admission, Mike. Paddleboarding, very difficult, like you said.
Yeah.
We've fallen a lot. I had like a sun shirt and a water bottle and a fanny pack with my phone in like a little Ziploc baggie, and I had it like strapped to the paddleboard. I stood up for about 4 seconds the entire hour that I was out there, got a really cute picture for Instagram, and then went back down and sat and paddled on my ass the rest of the time.
Really?
Because that shit is so hard. And not only did I not want to dunk my phone underwater, even though like it would have been fine because, it was in a waterproof bag, but my friend's phone was also in my bag. And I was like, I don't want to deal with this. Like, she's going to be mad if her phone goes under and we can't find it or something. There was like, it's Miami, Mike. There's mega yachts going by. There's jet skis going by. I've done stand-up paddle like in New York in like, calmer waters.
Calm water, right.
And it's difficult, but it's doable. This was like this wavy the whole time. So I was like, no, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to pretend like I did it for the Instagram. I did. Fooled everyone.
Okay.
Got a lot of comments
you did.
like, wow, that looks so hard. Like, how do you do that? I'm like, wow, I must just be really good at stand-up paddle. No, I sat on my ass the whole time. It was very difficult.
You know what? Thank you for admitting it, because you got a good shot. So that's it. You were going for the one good shot, but you fooled everybody, because that's the first thing I thought of was like, oh my God, how is she not losing the stuff on her paddleboard?
Yeah.
Okay, good explanation. I appreciate that.
I would have, at one point, I stood up a few times just to like see, like, can I do this? No, I can't. All right, I'll sit back down. At one point, I was so afraid while doing it that like I gave myself heartburn. Like I was standing on the paddleboard and I was like, I'm so afraid of falling in that now I have like debilitating heartburn. And then I sat back down.
My God, it's not like you're going to lose your life on it. Jeez,
I know,
man.
but I was scared. I don't like falling into, I've always had this like weird thing with water since I was a baby. I don't like getting my face wet. It's fine. I'm afraid to fall in, and it is what it is. So
the truth of the last 2 minutes juxtaposed with that one single picture tell two completely different stories then.
Someone actually commented on my picture and they're like, I feel like you're facing the wrong direction. And they are 100% right because I was not actually paddling. I was just like trying not to fall so I could get a split second to take a picture. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a huge phony. I don't care. Whatever.
Oh, good for you for admitting it. That's impressive. All right. That's something I had to find out. Okay, on to the listen, we had great college football, great NFL again, and we always know that football is going to lead the way, especially during football season, even in the off season sometimes. But we have a couple of things that are going on kind of off the field, one with a current person involved and one with a former. This Ime Udoka story, the head coach for the Celtics, well, not this year, as he is going to be suspended for the entire season because he had an intimate relationship with somebody who works for the organization, and that is a no-no there. There was a lot. This happened a bit ago, and there's been a lot of talk on it. Now, you and I have not had a chance to talk about it, so I want to start with you and just kind of give me your thought on it, on the timing of it coming out, of him being suspended for the entire year as opposed to being fired like some other companies would do. Just where you stand on this.
Yeah, I guess I don't really know what to think yet because we still haven't heard a lot of information about what transpired. And so I thought that the way the reporting came out was kind of unfortunate because at first Adrian Wojnarowski from ESPN tweeted that he was facing discipline for some violation of team rules. And then Shams, who's the NBA reporter from The Athletic, tweeted that it was because he had a quote-unquote consensual relationship with another Celtics employee. And then for 18 hours, we didn't hear anything from anyone. And so what happened on social media was a lot of people started posting photos of various Celtics employees trying to figure out who did what. And it was very gross because a lot of people got kind of dragged under the bus.
Thrown under the bus.
Yeah. And so the Celtics then had a press conference and they still haven't really revealed what their investigation showed or what really happened. Ime Udoka hasn't said anything since. They've only said that he's been suspended for the season. We still don't know what really transpired or when people found out or who was involved or what. So I really don't know what to make of the story. I do know that he has been a very successful coach there. The players didn't find out until Twitter, like the rest of us, because they had their opening press conference yesterday, the Celtics players, and a few of them said that they were very surprised and they still don't know what happened. And so I'm still very unsure what to make of all of it until I read more about it. And I'm also a little surprised, Mike, that more hasn't come out since Thursday.
So, and for those who don't know, he's engaged to someone else. This obviously is a personal issue with him, but it's becoming public. So I guess let me ask you this, and I agree, we don't know if we know the whole story, but let's take the story at face value right now, that he had an intimate relationship, a consensual relationship, and that's what we've heard again, with an employee, which, again, is a no-no in that organization. It's a no-no in a lot of organizations. So if we just take it at face value, are you good with the year suspension? Do you think it should have been less? Do you think he should have been fired?
I don't know. So there was also, I should mention, there was also a report in The Athletic that said that it was a consensual relationship, but there was also a unwanted comment made toward an employee. And that's where I'm not really sure what to make of any of it, and who is calling the relationship consensual. Is it someone close to the head coach of the Celtics, or is it someone close to the person that's involved in it? And so, yeah, I really don't think I can make any sort of judgment on it. I know that, like you said, a lot of workplaces are not okay with relationships among employees, especially when it's a subordinate relationship.
Right.
And if he's the head coach, chances are he's probably having a relationship with someone who works for him or is, has a lesser position with the team, for lack of a better word, isn't as high paid or as high status as he is. So yeah, like without knowing any of that, like I think this is a situation where the details matter and there's a lot of gray area, right? So I really can't say whether or not the punishment fits the crime or not. I also I don't get to decide that anyways.
Right.
But it seems like he's a well-liked person who's been very successful, and for them to suspend him, it doesn't seem like something the Celtics would have wanted to do, right? It seems like they probably would have preferred not to have any of this happen. So I'm not really sure what to make of any of it, or whether or not he'll even be back in a year, whose
Right.
side, you take in the situation, who's calling it consensual, who's not, it's kind of just a mess.
Yeah, it is. And I think one thing we do know, that if he finished last in the conference last year, that or he'd probably be fired. Yeah, we know how that works, right? The better you are as a player, coach, or whatever part you do for an organization, the more lead kind of line you get. So maybe that's one of the reasons, because a lot of people are saying he should have been fired immediately. I also read a lot, again, because it's instant reaction when you read on Twitter, there's a ton of people that are like, that's between him and that woman. If it was, again, I'm taking it at face value until we find out more. And I'm saying, no, I'm not saying, but by the report saying it was consensual, that a lot of people are saying that's their business. That shouldn't have any effect. There shouldn't be any discipline at all. But I mean, I really think people do need to understand there is the hierarchy of if it's a subordinate of yours, I mean, the power that can be wielded there is a lot. So, I mean, I get it why you shouldn't have relations. And I understand the one side in a vacuum of saying if you're two consenting adults and you want to have a relationship, like I know where and I know in a lot of companies, I know at ESPN, it was like you needed, if you were having a relationship with somebody within the company, you needed to go tell your bosses or HR or something so everybody knew what was going on.
Right.
But there has to be some rule or some situation like that where you're telling people, because there's too much that can go on with a power situation.
And there's also like other employees at the company who might be affected by if someone has a relationship with another person at the workplace. And that's why in a lot of companies you have to like disclose your relationship, because now if these two people are dating, they might make the workplace uncomfortable for everyone else in a number of ways. And I'm not saying that that's what happened here, but these are all things that you have to consider at work. Is this person treating this person differently now? Is it awkward for the other employees? Are there weird things being said and done at work? Like, who the hell knows? And that's why I think there's a lot more to the story. And until we find out more details, like I'm kind of good not making any sort of judgment on the punishment.
Yeah, because we have to believe there's going to be more information coming out, and the punishment's already been set. And I think a valid point you make, and I've heard others make it as well, is even after the year, we'll see if he's even going to be around after that or not. So we just have to kind of wait and see. But I know you and I hadn't had a chance to talk about it. So again, he'll be not coaching for the entire season, and we'll see if more info comes out about it. Speaking of more info now coming out, I mean, there's the whole, and it is amazing about people and sports figures who are getting in trouble. They'll always say, oh, you talk about this guy, but you don't talk about that guy. And we're hearing so many people saying, oh, man, you talk about this athlete or that athlete, but nobody's talking about Brett Favre and what he's doing and, the trouble he's getting in. And it is what a situation that is with Brett Favre, and now even more information coming out. But again, the basic story, if people haven't been diving into it, of him supposedly using money for the poor, underprivileged people to help build a volleyball stadium, volleyball arena, whatever it is, at Southern Miss. And then now there's more coming out that was talking about a football facility as well, and money that he supposedly pocketed for doing nothing. Do you feel like there's not been enough discussed about this and Brett, and if in fact this is all true, that the trouble he could and should be in?
I can't really speak to like how thoroughly it's been covered or not, because on the Levitard show, I think we've covered it pretty well. We had Anna Wolf, who's a Mississippi Today reporter who's been on this case for years, on the show last week, and she did a really good job breaking it down. So if you want more information from her, I would check out that episode. But yeah, Mike, I think this is a huge story, and if he gets indicted, I think it will be a even bigger, more massive story, because right now, like, all these text messages are becoming available of him texting with the former governor and saying, you know, he hopes that, you know, will the media find out where this money came from, things like that seem very, if not like, you know, incriminating, at least like really shady, right? So it's just like a really, really gross and ugly situation. Like, this money was supposed to go towards people who need immediate poverty assistance and relief, and he wanted to, you know, build a volleyball arena at his daughter's college and potentially this football facility and attract, you know, football recruits. And so, yeah, I really hope people are reading about it and talking about it, because the other thing is, like, I don't really know what you do about it. Say he's not indicted and there is no, you know, nothing happens. He pays a fine or whatever. Like, no one's ever been kicked out of the or the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Right. He's not currently involved in too many like sports related things. I know. I think he had like a Sirius XM show that got suspended. They paused that, and there was one other thing that got paused as well. And that was the other issue. People comparing like athletes of today who are getting in trouble. I said, you can't do that. I said, you know, look at different situations. I mean, you look at the Celtics situation with Udoka. That's a team decision. That's not an NBA decision. That's a team decision. You look at the Deshaun Watson situation. That's a league rule. That's a league discipline, not a team discipline, but a league. And then you look at the Brett Favre situation. That's a federal. I mean, that has nothing to do with a league or a team. So to compare any of them is somewhat ridiculous. I mean, if nothing happens to him legally, then nothing is going to happen to him, because it's not like some league is going to step in or team and discipline him. And, you know, when the law, like we saw in Deshaun Watson's case, didn't indict him, it still went to the league and he still got suspended. So there were still punishments that were involved. With Brett, it's either going to be he's going to be indicted and it's going to go federally, you know, to a crime, or nothing is going to happen. So we just have to wait and see. Well, I think one potential repercussion that is within our control is, you know, not treating him with the same veneration that we give a lot of former athletes. He doesn't deserve that. If all of this is true, he certainly will not ever be coming on this podcast. We don't have to treat him like he's, you know, this great, amazing person if all of this is true. But yeah, like you said, I'm not really sure, like, other than legal ramifications, which may still happen, this is currently under investigation. I think there's a lot more to the story that will be, you know, reported as more information unfolds. Like, he's not a current player or a current owner or a current coach. So yeah, his reputation is really the main thing that's getting damaged here, as it should be if this is all true. He is alleged to have done a very, very terrible thing. And then again, things being taken away. You have current athletes that may lose sponsors, like we saw, you know, golfers that went over to the LIV, they lost their sponsors and things like that. We see he lost a radio show. You're not going to get kicked out of the Hall of Fame. I mean, my God, you look in the Hall of Fame at some of the players in there and some of the things that have been done, and that's not what you do. It's not. You're not going to get kicked out of there. And listen, he could come on the pod if he wanted to talk about, you know, the shit he did. You know, we wouldn't be coming on the pod to sing his praises for his career. That's said and done. That was all on the field, and he deserves the Hall of Fame for that. But he'd be having to talk about, you know, some of this stuff and what he was doing, because, man, I mean, $1.1 million earmarked for, you know, welfare and for underprivileged to go to a volleyball arena was just. You read some of those texts and you're just like, wow. I mean, and again, you're texting this
I mean,
Yeah.
boy, oh boy. I mean, anything you put down in print, I always love the tweet when somebody tweets and then they delete it. Sorry, not deleted. that tweet was out there. Usually somebody got a screenshot of it or something, and it's like it's not going away. That's why I always said in Twitter there should be like a 10 to 20 second delay. When you hit send, you have another 10 or 20 seconds before it actually sends, where you can, if you go, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't do that, and you can actually stop it from going out there.
Yeah, well, it seemed like from reading these text messages, Brett Favre meant what he was doing and saying, and that's the ugly part. I'm sure there will be more to it. Again, it's like there's no silver lining. It's a pretty disgusting thing that he's being accused of doing and taking part in. So we'll definitely, update that story as more comes out. But I think it's a big news story already. If there is criminal repercussions for him, it's going to be a massive, just it'll be everywhere. Yeah.
All right, let's jump into some actual sports and enjoy it, not talk about some of this garbage that's going on. College football, another big week. The top, basically the top in the country, hasn't really changed, though. It could have been close. Clemson's still sitting there at number 5, and they had to go to overtime to beat Wake Forest. I mean, what a game that was. Georgia, though, the top 5 is Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, and Clemson. The biggest story of the weekend was right down in your backyard. I mean, Middle Tennessee State, another one of these teams collecting a check, to go down and get beat up upon by a big-time team, went to Miami and beat the Hurricanes. I mean, it had to be stunning news down there.
Oh my gosh, Mike, it was crazy. Middle Tennessee has never beaten a ranked team in the history of their program. Came into Miami. Miami's had a rough start to the season. They started the season with, I believe, Bethune-Cookman and I think Southern Miss, which was ironically the school we were just talking about, though I could be wrong.
Yes, it was. It was Cookman and it was Southern Miss. They won 70-13, 30-7. Then they lost to Texas A&M, and they lost 45-31 to Middle Tennessee.
They went to Texas A&M, kicked 5 field goals, made 3, lost. And then this was supposed to be like the rebound game. Like, all right, we're back at home. We're playing against Conference USA team. We'll get back in rhythm, get the season back on, on the rails. And then Middle Tennessee, Mike, I don't know if you looked at the stat line for the Middle Tennessee receivers, but I think their leading receiver had, he was averaging like 88 yards per reception because he had 2 catches for like 169 yards or something like that. Like, this quarterback was just throwing bombs the whole game. So they were Middle Tennessee, I think they were 25-point underdogs. They beat Miami. Miami was ranked 25th. I mean, they probably shouldn't have even been in the top 25 after the 3 games to start the season, but now they're certainly not ranked anymore. This is obviously a huge blow for them in the first season of Mario Cristobal's coaching tenure. But yeah, it was one of those games that I don't think many people were watching because it was on ACC Network, but it was totally like Middle Tennessee, their offense was so fun to watch because this quarterback was just like throwing bombs, Mike, and all for touchdowns. It was amazing. Oh yeah,
Middle Tennessee, the Blue Raiders got it done. Chase Cunningham is a quarterback, 16-25, 408 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. You mentioned the receivers. One had 2 catches for 169 yards. Another had 4 catches for 130 yards, and another had 1 catch for 69 yards. So, yeah, just hoisting the ball, and Miami getting beat deep over and over again. They have a bye this week, and then they play North Carolina, the team Notre Dame just beat. But, man, they have to be licking their wounds after that one. In Middle Tennessee, it's already happened a few times this year. Thank you very much for the check. Yeah. And we'll be on our way now.
Happened to Notre Dame. Deeply familiar with it. But, yeah, Mike, the Clemson-Wake Forest game was awesome. I've already complained several times about the Yankees live cut-ins during that game. Right. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole again. I'll just say that if your network is airing a game among ranked teams that is very close and people are tuned in to watch it, there's probably a reason they chose that game and not the baseball game, that the baseball player is tying a AL record in.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Listen, I love that they cut in at times, but if you cut it in at a bad time,
exactly.
That's obviously
they cut in during a touchdown
yeah.
and a 2-point
Yeah.
conversion to tie the game. All right, I've already said this enough. I've said this enough. We don't need to go down the rabbit hole again.
I'm with you there. I understand the cut in at times because
cut in during the commercial, for Christ's sake. I know they probably can't do that, but
right. It's a monster moment, and you know what? Just bad timing award that it happened during that particular time of the game. And our alma mater got thankfully an easy win. That was one of your comments, I know, in your fake Instagram picture. Was Pittsburgh game was over, Notre Dame won, so nothing could bother you or something like that.
Notre Dame's offense looked great. I mean, North Carolina's defense looked pretty terrible.
Awful.
But
they're awful.
You still need to capitalize playing against bad defenses. If you've got your backup quarterback in now, Drew Pine, for the rest of the season, he's starting, and I thought Notre Dame had a great game plan offensively. Like I got tricked out on a few plays. So did the cameraman. There was one Lorenzo Styles touchdown off a play action pass from Drew Pine. The cameras were in the backfield, and Lorenzo Styles was catching the football in the end zone, and I was totally misdirected, Mike. There was also a wheel route that was for a touchdown that Tommy Reese called. There were a couple, QB designed runs. I actually maybe only one, but it was successful. Did you see anything in that game that gave you more hope for the rest of the season?
Well, listen, what I had said about this team, I think maybe we overvalued them. A lot of people thought that by saying they started out at number 5 in the country, but that way you got a top 5 matchup in the first game with Ohio State if you put them number 5.
True.
That the O-line had young guys at tackle, and even though they got Harry Heastand, the coach, back, may take some time to develop, and they're developing. Certainly now going to a backup quarterback, it's going to take time for him to start to do his thing. I think the running game will continue to improve, and so will the wide receivers, which is a big question before the season. Michael Mayer continues to prove, he's, if not the best, right there with Brock Bowers, the tight end from Georgia, as the 2 best in the country, and Mayer will be the first tight end off the board in the draft this year. So it was a good game for them, and I think they'll keep improving. So they have a bye this week, and then I'm going to Vegas. Me and my wife will be in Vegas for the BYU, the Shamrock Series. So I think it's a good thing that they're just going to keep improving through the year. Probably keep us, on edge in a few games still. Obviously, you have Clemson. I think BYU had been playing well. I know they slipped up some. USC looks really good right now, and so we'll see. Got to give them a little bit of good games coming up this week. Kentucky, 7 Kentucky at 14 Ole Miss, 2 Alabama at 20 Arkansas, 10 North Carolina State at 5 Clemson. That game to me is going to be really interesting because Clemson is sitting at number 5, but I think they're a shaky number 5. I'm not too sure about them, so I think this will be a good matchup for them.
I think so too. I think one thing we should pay attention to, obviously we talked about the massive storm. That may impact the game if it's over the Carolinas on Saturday. There's already been a few games that have moved this weekend. South Carolina and South Carolina State are moving to Thursday night to avoid the storm. Mike, I was at that Clemson Notre Dame game in 2015 where there was remnants of a storm kind of hovering over Clemson's campus the entire night, dumping buckets of rain on us. It was crazy. They played in it despite the fact that I thought it could get canceled at any moment because it was like a once in a century storm over South Carolina. And so that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Hopefully everyone, stays safe and there's not too much flooding or damage. But like you said, Clemson is a shaky number 5, though that Wake Forest game was a test for them. Like they have a few members of your defense that were out, that were getting picked on by Wake Forest, and Sam Hartman's got a hell of an arm and was really picking apart the Clemson secondary. But at the same time, like Clemson's a team that if DJ Uiagalelei is playing well, which he was on Saturday, and finding open receivers, he was holding onto the ball, but he was finding open receivers, and that's what he's got to do. Like if he's playing well, they are, I think, a top 5 team. And so it depends how the offense is able to, keep it together against NC State. But they'll have home field, might have some bad weather, but it's going to be an exciting game. I think game
Yeah.
day is going to that one too.
Yeah, you mentioned Sam Hartman. It's interesting to talk on him because you see what he's doing. I covered him last year some, but everybody keeps saying, "Oh, it's the offense he's playing, and let's see what he could do." When he gets to the NFL, that's going to be interesting because it's a shame when you're playing well and you still get questioned because of the system that you're playing in, instead of like, hey, this is what he's asked to play in and he's dominated. So
Right.
I guess it can be a fair question at times, but you got to give the guy his due for what he's doing so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And now they're playing against Florida State, who is back in the rankings again.
There they are.
So there's a lot of good games this weekend. And you know what the best part is, Mike? Notre Dame is not one of them because we get to relax on Saturday.
We get to relax, and so the heart rate won't be up
Nope.
This week for us anyway in college. In the NFL, going to be an interesting week. I am actually supposed to cover for Westwood One the Kansas City at Tampa Bay game Sunday night. It's a Sunday night game, NBC game. So still waiting to hear what's going on there. For those that don't know, Tampa Bay is going to go to the Miami Dolphins facility. Miami plays on Thursday, so they'll be out of their facility Wednesday traveling. So the Tampa will get there on Wednesday, and they're going to practice the rest of the week there. And then obviously the league and everybody is monitoring the situation. It's one of those where I think two things, Jess. It'll either be played in Tampa, maybe on a different day, unless the storm isn't hitting and played there, or it'll be played somewhere else. So it's just a matter of waiting to see what the path of the hurricane is going to be.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned Miami, Mike. We already talked about the Miami Middle Tennessee game, but the Miami Dolphins NFL game this Sunday was one of the most bizarre and maybe exciting of the weekend, although only the last couple minutes of the fourth quarter were exciting. The rest of the game, it wasn't really like the offensive shootout that I think fans were hoping for. Tua obviously got hurt. I'm wondering what you thought about that. Tua got hit on a play, looked like he hit his head on the field, and then got back up, stumbled, went to the locker room. The team is saying, and he is saying that his back locked up and was hurt from an earlier play, but it appeared to people watching that he had a head injury. So then he came back out, played the second half, and now the NFLPA is looking into it. So I know you've done a lot of work on NFL safety and head injuries and things like that. So what did you see on that?
Well,
and what do you make of it?
From a player standpoint, now I do come from the era where they literally put fingers up, and if you were close, you went back in the game. And I'm not bullshitting you. I mean,
I believe you.
You took a couple aspirin, you went in, and you know what? We wanted to go back in. So the best rule for the NFL or for sports, for contact sports, is don't make it the player's decision. Because a lot of times that's what they do. How do you feel? I feel fine. I'm ready to go. You have to take the player out of it. And you have to take his helmet away if you don't think he can go in, and that's why they have independent doctors there. So there's a couple of ways I look at it here. If I was playing today, and Tua smacked the back of his head on the turf, there's no doubt about it, and then I stumbled, and I could get away with saying, I stumbled because my back locked up, that's exactly what I would do. I would say some other reason other than my head is the reason that I stumbled to try and pull that off. Now, you shouldn't be able to because there are a battery of tests that you have to go through. For those that don't know, there are tests on the sideline that you have to go through. And if you don't pass those tests, you go into the locker room. Or you could just go directly into the locker room and do those tests as well. And if you pass them, then enough, there's a whole list of them that I won't bore you with, but understand, if you pass them, you are allowed to go back and play, which is exactly what happened here. And the player really isn't supposed to have a lot of input in that. So if he truly did pass all those tests, and it was his back, which I don't know, again, players will say a lot to get on the field, but I know that the rules now and what he has to pass to get back on the field, and these, again, are independent doctors, and if he can pass these tests, then get back on the field, then I'm cool with it. But I also understand the union wanting to get involved to say, we just want to make sure the process was followed correctly, before one of our, people went back on the field. Mm-hmm. So I can see it from both sides in this. But to get back on the field, you gotta. There's a number of things that you have to be able to do that he obviously was able to do. So There's so much safety in the league right now, protocols that they have put, to my standard, sometimes too much. Sometimes they call things too quickly, but I get it because we're in a real safety era right now. So I don't really have a problem. To me, it just says he must have passed it, because some of those you look at, listen, if a guy gets hit in the head and he gets up and he's stumbling around like a boxer who just took a hard right cross, it's hard to think he's ever going back in the game. Mm-hmm. So when you saw him stumble, the first thing I thought of was, oh, he's done. Right. He's not going back in the game. So so that's their information. Now they're going to have to show all that to the union if the union is going to file the grievance and want to know the process and everything. So we'll have to wait and see. But all I'll say is, to get back out on the field, you do have to pass a battery of tests.
Right. I mean, optically, it definitely looked really scary, I think, for anyone watching. But the PA is just going to find out, did they follow the rules? Did they do all those tests? Did the independent neurologist, sign off on it? If everything went by, the book, then there's nothing to see here. But optically, we have to look into it, because what everyone saw on their TV was this guy could barely stand up, and then all of a sudden he was back in the game. So yeah, I'm with you. As long as they followed the rules and didn't put him at risk, and everything was by the book, then maybe it was just his back. It looked pretty sketchy, and that's why the NFLPA is looking into it. But aside from that, Mike, the butt punt was, I think, the play of the weekend. Have you ever seen a play like that, other than maybe the butt fumble, the Mark Sanchez butt fumble?
I have seen field goal kickers kick the ball into the back of their offensive lineman. I have seen that. I have not seen the kick into the butt. Now, again, the punter was in the end zone, so sometimes your operation becomes shorter. And then if your personal protector backs up at all, you're closing that space. And then next thing you know, you have a football going up your ass. That's can be a tough call. And what a picture that's floating around everywhere. It's just amazing. But no, I've seen kickers do it, like I said, into their own players on the field goal team, because I've been out there on the field goal team. I never had a ball kicked into me, but I've heard it. You hear that double thud, the ball kicking, the foot kicking the ball, and then the ball hitting something. And at times it's been the back of our offensive linemen who are protecting. But so there's two undefeateds. There's Miami and there's Philadelphia. Are you, because I'm hearing a lot of people saying, I still think Buffalo is better than Miami. I still think the Ravens are better than Miami. I still think Kansas City's better than Miami. Are you buying into Miami down there?
I think Miami's really good. I don't know if I'm anointing them the best team in the AFC. I think Kansas City had a little bit of bad luck this weekend, losing to the Colts with special teams. Their all-pro special teams kicker is out for a few weeks. He got hurt in week 1. I thought they had some bad calls go their way. I still think Kansas City's really good. And, they had a muffed punt, too. That kind of swung the game for them. But I also think Buffalo's really good. They were playing, they're a little short in the secondary right now with injuries. They were playing a couple rookies back there against Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
They had 5 defensive starters out. They had a few different O-linemen in there as well. But you play with who you got, so you got to give Miami credit for it. And now And now they're playing, they're going to play the, nobody believes in this card. I hope the fans are digging it down there, because I've said this before. When I was there in 93, we were 9-2. We had the best record in football, and we couldn't sell out the stadium. The apathy was embarrassing down there. So Mike, I don't know if it's any better.
Let's just say there were more fans at the Dolphins game this weekend than the Miami Hurricanes game. It seemed like there was an impressive atmosphere, and there were also a lot of Bills fans in town. And I think what Ken Dorsey did may have just pumped up those fans for the rest of the year. Because when you see that clip of him in the offensive coordinator's box trying to break his tablet in half.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a fan, you love that, right? You're like, wow, these coaches really care about this team. They're going to get shit together. Or do you see that and you're like, oh my God, this team's a dumpster fire? Because for me, I think I would be like, wow,
So you like it? I was going to say, awesome. because we saw Tommy Reese have his moment.
Yeah.
Yelling at Drew Pine. We saw Dorsey throwing everything he could get his hands. If you didn't see it, you can find it, I'm sure, online, on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, Dorsey just throwing, Ken Dorsey, the OC, just throwing shit everywhere. But you better not throw the pad anymore, because the league said they're going to start to fine people after the Tom Brady last week. Yeah, throwing his shit like a baseball, that they're going to start fining you. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with there's so much up in the emotion of the moment and cameras are everywhere. And Dorsey said he's going to try and learn from it, and nobody wants to get caught on camera doing that. But I personally don't have a problem, because people are always like, when I was doing shows every day and there were fights on the sideline or coaches and players yelling, people would be like, oh, I'd be like, that doesn't mean shit. It's the moment, the emotion of the moment. Everybody gets fired up, and then you put it aside.
Well, also, no, he wasn't hurting anyone or berating anyone or being the only victim was his stack of papers and the Microsoft Surface tablet. And honestly, the NFL and Microsoft should love how much attention this product is getting on sidelines. They should be actively endorsing players and coaches, throwing them around, because it's the most anyone's ever talked about this stupid, iPad competitor in the history of any sport or anything. Really, it's a great ad.
What they should be doing is have somebody pick up the iPad and put it in front of the camera and go, see, it still works. It takes a lick and it keeps on ticking. The old watch commercial, do that.
Apparently, Tom Brady's excuse was that his password wasn't working or something, and that's why he threw his. Did you see that?
Oh, please! Just admit you were freaking hot, man. So what?
But it does seem like something that would frustrate you, Mike. Trying to open your QuickTime on your computer and it's not showing up.
Listen, Jess, you are right. My kids and wife they just laugh at me. My lack of patience with anything electronic is it's embarrassing. I should be more patient, but it's embarrassing. I got one more thing I want to ask you before we go.
All right.
This happened after again the game that I was doing. It was San Francisco and I just did it 2 days ago. San Fran and Denver.
Denver, yeah.
I was in Denver doing that game. And after the game, there was a clip. Denver ends up coming back and winning that game 11-10. By the way, only the second time in the history of the NFL a score has ended 11-10. I think the other time was in 2007 or something like that. But after the game, there was Jimmy G going across and shaking hands with one of the players from Denver, and Jimmy G was smiling, and they were both smiling, hugged one another. And there's the people again. Oh, I can't stand this. I am so sick of that shit. I'm so sick of people. This is what their job is. They play this game. They put all the work in for the week. Believe me, he's bummed about the loss. But there are people that you know, people that you see, that you get to see, that you don't get to see a lot, that you see them there. This is what happens, man. And I hate to tell y'all, but everybody thinks they should hate and not talk before the game. You should see the people before the game talking to one another and hugging one another on the field. It happens all the time. After the game, there are players swapping jerseys and signing them. It happens. And for anybody to get mad at that, man, just freaking stop it. Just stop it. If you think they don't care, you're full of shit. They care. They care. But in that moment, doesn't mean they got to throw shit like Ken Dorsey did and run off the field and not shake hands with anybody or say hi to anybody. I can't stand that, Jess. Does it affect you at all?
Mike, I remember when I was 12 years old and I found out that the players on the Steelers didn't actually hate the players on the Ravens as much as I did. And I was devastated. But then I grew up and realized that this is a game that we watch on TV, and these are professional athletes, and they have lives and relationships, and most of them, don't grow up with the same sports fan brain that the people watching do. And yeah, I think that was so just goofy. I can't believe anyone would get upset at it. I truly wonder, would you rather Jimmy G be performatively angry after a game? Because I think we're in the era where we like authenticity from players that we watch. And if he's just that kind of guy where He's excited to see his friend after a game. I think that like it's fine that we see it. Who gives a shit, Mike? Like it's
Oh my God.
so goofy. But yeah, I'm with you. It's very, very goofy.
And listen, there are some players that don't go shake hands, that just go off the field, and that's fine if they want to do that.
But that you get criticized for that too. Like
Oh,
if you,
sure you
if
do.
you run
Go
off the
shake
field, then
hands.
all of
Yeah.
a sudden you're unsportsmanlike. It's a
Yeah.
lose-lose situation. No matter what you
Yeah.
do, you're getting scrutinized for it.
Absolutely is. And by the way, all the fans out there that criticize them, the players don't care. They don't care that you're
Right.
criticizing them. They're going to
They'll
continue
go
to do what they
cry
do.
into their multi-million-dollar,
Yeah.
salaries.
Oh,
It's
but
fine.
that just aggravates me so much that the guys are just going to say hi and smiling and giving a hug to someone they know. So what? Oh my God, that just I just had to get that one off my chest because that just aggravates the living hell out of me. So, all right, Jess, what do you got planned? Anything planned for the rest of the week? We baking? We doing anything like that?
We are baking. I baked this morning. There's not going to be a lot of activities outdoors happening this week
Right.
down here in South Florida. So I baked a little chocolate pumpkin loaf.
I was going to say, got to be
pretty good.
90% of the things you make during this month and next month are going to be pumpkin related, correct?
Yeah, Mike, actually, I have an idea for what I'm going to bake for you when I see you in 2 weeks at the Golic and Smetty live show at O'Rourke's
Right.
on October 14th at 7:30. I won't say what it is, but I will let you know it is something that you've probably had a lot of while living in the Northeast in the fall.
Oh,
I'll
I'm
leave it at that.
so looking forward to that. Again, what Jess is talking about, the Stanford game is October 15th at Notre Dame. The 14th, her and I are doing a live show at O'Rourke's, which is right across the street from campus. So anybody in for the game, more than welcome. The pep rally is usually at 6 o'clock. So we're going to let the pep rally happen and be over, and then everybody get ready to party. And then we'll do a live show. We still are waiting to find out if we're allowed to drink during this live show. I hope we are. Of course,
Oh,
we're not going to be able to.
maybe afterwards you can wash down this delicious treat with a Guinness because we are presented by Guinness.
Oh, there will be Guinness drinking. I'll be consuming Guinness. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
All right.
good one with your Notre Dame degree right there.
Shut up, Jess.
I'll see you next week, Mike.
See ya. All right.